girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done. Girls with their nails done.
Hey everybody, Lindsay here, and we're here to talk about the Transporter versus the Beekeeper. The Beekeeper versus the Transporter. Two Jason Statham action movies. One from 2002 and one just came out. I'm pretty sure it's still in theaters right now. If you want to know my full thoughts about the Beekeeper, make sure you go check out my review on my channel. It had been a while since I'd seen the Transporter, so it was a nice little revisit. It's fun. It's crazy. It was written by Luc Besson. There's explosions, there's fights, there's gunfire. This movie really does show off Jason Statham's abilities very, very well. And I love its heightened, like almost cartoonish violence in it, because some of these fight scenes are just ridiculous, especially like the oil slick fight where he straps on some bike pedals to kick like 10 dudes' asses. The Beekeeper, again, we get some amazing fight sequences. We get some ridiculous dialogue. We get a lot of bee stuff. The fight in the shop in the barn is amazing, but when weighing these two against each other, it can be a little difficult to judge. Both have great action sequences, both have a lot of violence. The Beekeeper doesn't have a very dynamic villain. Yes, it has Jeremy Irons in it, but he's not really the bad guy. Transporter, yes, we get a couple villains, but they're very generic. Nothing makes them stand out in a lineup of generic action movie villains. One thing the Beekeeper does have that the Transporter does not have is an R rating. The Transporter is PG-13, the Beekeeper is rated R, and I like my action movies rated R. I like my blood, I like my eviscerations, I like my stabbing. I want to see a guy get the barrel of a shotgun rammed into his throat the hard way. I want to see a guy get his fingers cut off. I want to see some SWAT dude get cut in half by an elevator. And I want to see Jason Statham fight some big, giant South African dude to the death. Yes, the Transporter has many, many, many more explosions, but I gotta give it to the Beekeeper on this one. My vote's for the Beekeeper.
Hey Samurai, evening gents. Versus time again. I'm so sorry that I can't be there for this one. It would have been so much fun to dive into these two slices of pure, unadulterated Jason Statham cheese. So we have the Beekeeper versus the Transporter. We have America versus France. Basically we have a Big Mac versus a Croque Monsieur. American cheese versus Emmental, maybe. Both these movies, not amazing movies, but both really pretty fun movies. But for me, much like McDonald's food, I love eating it. I wear it on my heart, but it doesn't really fill you up. It doesn't really kind of leave a lasting effect. I can't remember much about the Beekeeper, having seen it. There's not that many of the action sequences that I think will stay with me. It was reliant on a pretty ropey script from Kurt Wimmer. They did a pretty good job. David Ayer is a great director, and certainly a couple of those action sequences, the lift and stuff, I have a vague recollection of, kinda. But the Transporter, man, Corey Yuen bringing the Hong Kong ham. I will always remember that axe fight. Jason Statham pulling off a pretty great double kick up in the air. That great scene with the bike pedals that he kicks off when they're in the garage scene. Really, really well done. But ultimately, if it has to come down to a tie, then that tie is broken by the presence of Shuki in the Transporter. She's incredible. She's so adorable in what could have been a really thankless throwaway part. She does a really good job in a language that's not her own of being really absolutely charming, and for me is the thing that pushes the Transporter into the winning spot. So yeah, I know everybody's loving on the Beekeeper. For me, it's no John Wick, it's no Raid 2, which are the two monumental titans that we discussed last time we got a chance to sit down for versus. Neither of those two movies are up to that sort of standard. But for me, yeah, the Transporter one all day, every day. Plus, has a much better soundtrack. R.I.P. Nate Dogg. I got love for all you dogs. I've been the Fanatical Dragon. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.
What's going on, everybody? It's Charlie with Give Me Back My Action Movies. Fast Samurai asked me to jump in on this little versus going on between the Transporter and the Beekeeper. Why don't you just ask me which one is my favorite kid? You know, Preston. That would have been a whole lot easier. You got young Statham versus more mature Statham. I'm gonna have to give the edge, though, to Beekeeper because of that maturity. You know, rewatching The Transporter, he's young, he's jumping around a lot more spin kicks, you know, a lot more smooth, cool action moves. But the Beekeeper, he was just a man on a mission. He was a badass. He looked as hard as steel, and it's probably peak Statham for me right now. So, gun to my head, it's Beekeeper, which is definitely worth everybody's time if you haven't watched it yet. So, check me out over at Give Me Back My Action and Horror Movies, the podcast, and we will catch you guys on the next one. Bye.
What's happening, big man? How are you? It's Michael Hode here, fresh wrapped off A Woman Scorned, which is the action movie I told you about, where I was the action director and the lead villain in that, hence the blonde hair. But yeah, you asked me about Beekeeper and the Transporter. Now, I prefer Beekeeper, and I'll tell you why. One, because I think the premise is great. I love the premise of the guy, this lone guy, and all he cares about is his bees, and then they mess with his landlord, and then he's on the warpath. So I just love that concept. I think it's a quite unique concept. And the action was superb. Actually, one of the actors that I hired for A Woman Scorned, he was in that, John Calloway. He worked on Beekeeper. And yeah, so I thought the action was high level. It was simple, but executed really well. And you know that's what I like hard-hitting, military-style martial arts. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. So I would say that's better than The Transporter, just because of the story and the kind of unique premise in that way. And I was pleasantly surprised with that movie. So that's my vote, brother. And hope to see you soon. And I'll be on your show to talk about some of these projects I've got coming up.
Hey, Fat Samurai guy, Javon Wallace here. Now, choosing between the Transporter and the Beekeeper, I'm gonna have to go with the OG, the Transporter. One, the first time we really get to see Jason Statham do any type of real martial arts in a movie, and can never go wrong with Corey Yuen, you know. I love Corey Yun's, you know, film directing and his fight choreography. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Transporter. And hopefully I'll see you soon on your next show. See you later, man.
Hello, Frank J here, the commentary beast, recovering from a cold, here with my thoughts on The Beekeeper versus The Transporter. First, The Beekeeper. I was pleasantly surprised by this film. I didn't have any expectation. You know, when I went to see the film, you know, this is like a great throwback to all those 1980s action films with Stallone and Schwarzenegger, where they never get hurt or shot, whereas every time they shoot somebody, they all get shot. I love the over-the-top villain. I love the campy side characters, like the one you saw at the call center. You know, especially that plot twist of a true villain. You know, it's like, are you fucking kidding me? You know, like who the bad guy really was. And then you also have this great brutality, you know, in terms of the fight. You know, you have the great gas station fight, you have the great night fight at the end. With that said, also the film was shot, you know, beautifully. With that said, I felt that the film focused, you know, really a bit too much on the bad guys more than on Jason Statham. And also, I felt the FBI characters, the two FBI agents, I felt that they were just written in a way that they just conveniently show up or needed whenever they're needed. And like when the plot needs them, they just show up. So those are the kind of like the flaws that I felt for this film. And then I watched The Transporter again. And once again, I was just struck by how great, how inventive, how creative the fights were, the chases were. The great opening car chase, the great chase at the end. And of course, the lovely Shu-Chi. Like, how can you resist the lovely and sexy Shu-Chi? She was great in every single scene. Of course, Korean action choreography was brilliant. This feels really more like a Hong Kong film, except that you have Westerners in it. And of course, it also felt like a more bigger budget film than The Beekeeper. Feel more international, feel more like a James Bond film. So, as much as I love The Beekeeper and I wish to see a sequel to that film, my vote for this Versus episode goes to The Transporter. Until next time, take care and bye-bye.